The Kerala government will seek permission from the GST Council to impose a 10% cess on the state component of the GST. This in a bid to raise emergency funds to undertake rehabilitation and reconstruction projects in the state, trying to recover from the aftermath of what has been the worst floods the state has seen in nearly a century. The union government has already sanctioned aid of 600 crore rupees. An initial estimate, according to the Finance Minister of Kerala, pegs the damages to the tune of almost 20,000 crore rupees. Thomas Isaac, the Finance Minister of Kerala, believes that they have no choice but to impose a cess on the SGST. Remember, the Kerala government has already hiked excise duty on liquor by 0.5%. The Finance Minister of Kerala says that coupled with cess money, the state will be able to mobilize about 750 crore rupees. He joins us live right now. Mr. Isaac, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Let me start by asking you about what is the need at this hour in terms of relief and rescue? Rehabilitation is a separate story altogether. If I take a look at what Mr. Alphonse, who's representing the centre, he says that 760 crore rupees have been provided to Kerala for immediate rescue and relief, and the centre will provide more once there is an estimation of the damage, and that estimation will be put forward to a committee of ministers who will then give the go-ahead and apportion the amount. So for relief and rescue, is 760 crore rupees from the centre enough?
Now, I don't know what he's speaking about 760 crores. 600 crores is the centre's allocation to my knowledge. It's totally inadequate. There are two sets of expenditures involved. One is the relief measures immediately to be undertaken, which would be current revenue expenditure. And then there is the expenditure, which is capital expenditure for rehabilitation, reconstruction, which is a slightly longer time frame. Now, we have got something called FRBM Bank, which says that my revenue expenditure and revenue receipts have to be equal. So suddenly I'm faced with a surge in the revenue expenditure. Already I'm facing a big, heavy revenue deficit because GST tax receipts have been much below expectations, and therefore I need to raise the revenue. Now, sorry, Alphonse, calculation is totally wrong. This is not sufficient. My calculations for immediate relief means that 1.25 million people living in their camps. The running of the camps, when they go back, they have to be provided some money, their immediate certain compensations and so on, which comes to something like 3,000 crores of rupees. So this 600 crores given by the centre is totally insufficient. Now, centre may have its own problems of fiscal deficit and perhaps cannot give more grant to state. And therefore, I'm saying, all right, give me the right to have a cess on SGST. It does not affect the industry trade. It does not affect the revenues of centre. So why should they be bothered? There must be this much, at least, federal flexibility to the state to mobilize revenue. That's one. Second, all over the globe, there is a great sympathy for Kerala, and people are coming forward in solidarity to make donations. Now, with also long-standing relations that the Gulf states have with Malabar Coast, and the fact the majority of the population in that country hails from Kerala, they have decided to make a donation. We didn't ask for donation. They decided to make a donation of 700 crores. Now, this is something permitted in the National Disaster Policy of 2016.
Yes.
Okay, you won't give more money. You say you will consider, but no assurance. Now, the assurance of this kind, you can run a state government. I need assurance, not just a wish, but a total commitment. That I understand there is some difficulty for them. Then permit me to mobilize my own revenue. Permit me to collect whatever donation that comes in. Now, you don't give money, then we won't allow you to collect money.
Sir, you're saying bringing up several issues. Let me address them one by one, sir. Let me start by addressing the issue where you talk about wanting to impose a cess on the SGST. Are you taking this to the GST Council? The next meeting of the GST Council is slated only for September. Are you going to write to the centre and to GST Council members seeking an early meeting of the GST Council to take up this matter of Kerala's decision to want to impose a cess?
Precisely, that's what I want. Now, central government, for some time now, over 3 months, have been trying to impose a cess on sugar, which is being debated. Now, that has implications for interstate trade and so on. What I'm saying is, this is purely intrastate trade. It is absolutely, it's a matter between the government of Kerala and its consumers. And therefore, it shouldn't bother anybody. Because of that kind of flexibility must be there. Now look at me. I am a glorified municipal commissioner kind of thing. What is left for me for additional resource mobilization? What do? We have to depend upon the grant given by the center. There must be certain flexibility for resource mobilization without hindrance to interstate trade. And that's all what I am proposing. Precisely, you are right.
No,
I intend to take it to the GST Council, right to all state finance ministers.
Sir, if I may interrupt you here, I remember you and I had several conversations when the centre came up with this proposal of wanting to impose a sugar cess. And you said it was a bad idea because it was distortionary. You said that tomorrow Kerala can ask for a rubber cess, West Bengal will ask for a jute cess, and there will be no end to the matter. Today you're saying you're left with no choice but to impose a cess or the need to impose a cess. But given the situation in the state, sir, an additional cess imposition, will that not make matters worse for consumers?
No. See, it's a matter of relationship consumers in my state and the state government. You know, the tax GDP ratio in India is just 18%. The tax GDP ratio in Scandinavian countries is 40–50%. So the extent of the tax burden a region or country can bear is something culturally, historically, and also determined by the expectations they have on the government and the services the government proceed. The people of Kerala, suppose they are willing to accept a greater incidence of tax to ensure for a certain assured services of state government, why should anybody be bothered? Now, this has always been my consistent position that STMST must be within a brand, with a band flexibilities for state to adjust. In fact, this is a consistent demand that Kerala has made. I oppose sugar cess because it would affect interstate trade. And that complicates things. But this is not interstate trade. It's simply on STST. And in fact, the final meeting of the sugar cess committee, my proposal for information was, we impose a cess for agriculture, not just for sugar. And let's have a separate fund
I got that.
From which the states can draw. Yeah, that's my position.
Okay, let me ask you this, sir, because you also said that you're facing a revenue deficit on account of the GST imposition. But states are being compensated, sir. You're guaranteed compensation from the centre for 5 years. Kerala gets the compensation. So in that sense, you're not facing any hit on the revenue front.
Oh, that's a very sharp argument. But it misses the point that from 2006 to 2013, Kerala's revenues were growing. VAT receipts were growing at 20% per annum. See. Then it decelerated. And we were expecting that GST, because of its logic and structure, would enable a destination state like Kerala to once again pick up the momentum of revenue growth to 20%. And that would take care of our revenue deficit. But now with compensation, you get only 14. My social committed expenditures for education, healthcare, housing, and so on, this is totally insufficient. That's what I said. I'm not saying that they're not going to compensate, but the expectations of about regaining the 20% growth were belied because it was being implemented badly. Nothing could have been worse than the kind of implementation process we had for GST.
Okay. Let me now talk to you about the damage estimates, sir. You said that immediate relief, your estimate is that that requires about 3,000 odd crores. Rehabilitation, I would imagine, is going to require more time for the state government to provide a credible assessment, an accurate assessment. And under the National Disaster Management Policy, you do need to work with the centre in order to be able to provide the accurate estimates required for rehabilitation. But ballpark, what is the kind of requirement that you envisage as far as rehabilitation is concerned?
Well, our present last cabinet, in fact, a note was discussed, and we've put the estimate around 25,000 crores. There are other major programs of investments, infrastructure development going on. So that is also to be taken into consideration. Still, the amount required was something like 25,000 crores. Now, we don't expect central government to give us a grant. This, we are saying, raise our FRBM limit by 1.5%. Anyway, for 2008, this has been wantonly broken by central government and much less by the state government. Now, given the circumstances, raise our borrowing level to 4.5%. So for 2 years, and that should permit us to borrow 25,000 crores. Now, one promise that we will make is not a pie of it will be bet on current expenditure, it will be entirely on capital expenditure. With that commitment, I think, and we should also look out for soft loans from multilateral agencies and World Bank. Given the kind of sympathy for Kerala, I am sure we should be able to find soft loans enough and have a viable program. Yeah.
Okay, so you are looking at soft loans as well from multilateral agencies. I want to go back to the issue of foreign assistance, and you're right that the National Disaster Management Policy of 2016 does provide for foreign assistance if it were to voluntarily be provided, but that is a decision that the central government has to make. And so far, consistently almost over the last 15 odd years, the centre has preferred not to rely on foreign aid. Now, the centre is saying that we are not saying no to Kerala's requests or Kerala's demands. We have given 700 crores, 600 crores according to you, 760 crores according to Mr. Alphonse for immediate relief. And we will assess the damage and the rehabilitation required and provide more as and when we have credible, accurate information. So why make this one-up-man show between the government of India and UAE and embarrass the government of India?
And now, we didn't ask any government, foreign or inside India, for support. We didn't make a plea. They voluntarily, seeing the misery in Kerala, made this offer. Now, you're asking why we respond to central government. Why should the central government have immediately responded? There is in the national policy a provision for that. Give it a concerted discussion. Call the state government for a discussion, look at it, then take a position, you see. Instead of that, it was the immediate response of central government, no. Now, that is where they made the mistake. And then, therefore, I certainly had to respond, our government had to respond, our CM responded. It's not we started this. The central government, instead of studying the issue carefully, given the fact that it was not against the national disaster policy, they should have at least discussed with the state government. Now, without that, it is the centre who has taken a confrontationist line, not we. And we are still, what has our CM said? Our CM has said, well, we will write to the PM, we will appeal to the Prime Minister. That is what we are going to do.
So, have you decided, because Mr. Vijayan left it a little open, saying that we'll think about whether we want to appeal the decision and take this up with the Prime Minister. Has the state government decided to ask the centre to review its decision not to accept foreign aid, especially from the UAE?
Now, this has happened after our last cabinet meeting. We have every weekly cabinet meeting. So definitely in the next meeting we'll be considering that. But what I read from the statement of the Chief Minister was that Kerala is keen to get as much help as possible. Because, you see, central government, as a finance minister, I understand, they have the constraint. I'm not going to say central didn't give 2,000 crores as grant. Because already fiscal deficit of the central government is window dressed. Actually, it is more than 4%, and therefore, possibility of increase in the fiscal deficit is going to have impact upon even a foreign exchange crisis. So, therefore, we understand there are limitations of central government. We did not a statement was made by the CM blaming that you have not given what we asked and ridiculing it. No, we didn't. We understand the constraints, but then don't stand in our way. Hey, you can't. You have certain limitations. You can provide money as much as you want. Then why do you hinder somebody else helping Kerala?
Okay. All right. Mr. Isaac, we continue to wish you luck, sir, and appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Thanks very much for the latest update, and we will keep checking in with you for more on the rehabilitation efforts in Kerala. Finance Minister of Kerala there. We'll take a break and be right back with a lot more.